Robert's Rules of Order brought these two together. You're now listening to the Beardcast, hosted by the Bearded Theologians, Zach Bechtold and Matt Franks. If you'd like to find out more about the Bearded Theologians, you can go online at www.beardedtheologians.com. You're listening to the Bearded Theologians, hosted by Matt Franks
and Zach Bechtold.
This week on the Bearded Theologians, the question that we kind of came up with in our sausage making session was, is God still creating today? So Zach, I will let you kick us off with that question.
You know, that's a fun question. You know, it's also one of those that I feel like here lately we've been approaching topics that we can podcast on for days. And I hope that's providing plenty of conversation for all of you out there. So is God still creating today? Yeah, you know, the short answer, yes. I do believe that he is. And, you know, the easy answer there's, you know, people and nature and things like that. But I also see it through, you know, the means of grace that we do. And our spiritual practices and when we practice the sacraments and things through communion. I believe that God's creating in us new people, and as well as the creation of the kingdom, you know, and what that looks like and how we make disciples and just be in relationship with God. And so, I do believe that God's still creating. I think he's still creating through me, and I see him creating through the people around me, just in their relationships with him and with people. So if that made any sense at all, maybe not. But Matt, what do you think? Is God still creating today for you?
Yeah, I mean, I know, like we've said, it's pretty clear that God is still doing great work here on earth. I think the thing that we have to question is what is our response to God's creating and where God is leading us. And while God is still continuing creating, and that's in humans and in life and all the things around us, how are we responding to what God is calling us to do? And what does that look like? And how are we moving forward in society? And as you look back on history, it's amazing to see where we've come from and how when we stay close to God and we listen to the Spirit and we're led to be better people, things do progress. And I think the times that we don't listen to God, that's when we kind of make his creation a little bit difficult. And I think that's the true question is God still creating? Yes. But I think also we have to look at how is our response to God creating in the world today. And I think that's something that as we wrestle with that's kind of where we could figure out where is God calling us to be a better people. And I think that's kind of where, as I continue to think about that, is God still creating today? That's kind of, yeah. But are we listening? That's the whole other question.
You know, I think the thing that we forget about creation, you know, the short answer is yes. We do believe that God created and is still creating today, but where's our responsibility in that? You know, we find throughout Scripture that God indeed did create, but he also handed it over to us to take care of. And, you know, do we walk a fine line of not taking care of that creation? Or are we walking a fine line of trying to create things in our own? And are we trying to be the creator rather than letting God continue to create? You know, is there something there in with that? As long as, like you said, you know, where's our responsibility in this creation? What are we doing with it? Are we being good stewards of it?
And that's where, like, I was thinking of this, and we were kind of both looking at different books, and I pulled out this Theology, the Basic Readings by Alistair McGrath, and it's different theologians that respond to different questions. And this is G.K. Chesterton on the doctrine of creation. This is his kind of response, but he has this line here that I really like. He said, God had written not so much a poem, but rather a play he had planned as perfect, but which had necessarily been left to human actors and stage managers, who has since made a great mess of it. I kind of like that. I like that. God has this grand vision in mind and plan and play for us. God has a play for us. Like, maybe we'll change that Jeremiah text that God has a play for you. Whether you choose to be a part of it, that's your choice. And being a part of it is such a great experience. But if you choose not to be a part of it, then you're missing out. Maybe that's something we can look at or talk about or just wrestle with that. Feel free to send us responses to that. But what if it's not necessarily a response, but are we truly paying attention to where creation is happening, and how God is at work in this world? And Rob Bell's thing on Spiritual Now, or whatever it's called, that he has, and he talks about life moving forward. He does such a good job with that, and I encourage you to look that up if you get a chance to find that video, and pay attention to that. But how are we participating in God's creation? That's something good to wrestle with.
It really is, because I don't think, I think when we look at creation and how God created us, maybe we get stuck in this. Well, this is how God created me, or, this is just who I am. I can't break away from it. Rather than, what role do I have to play in this, whether it be a situation in your own life or, like you say, in this greater play, what is our role in that? And are we taking it in matters of, we're trying to be a lead character in this when we're not, or not being a lead character when we're being called to be. How do we participate, and are we participating fully, or are we participating with apathy, essentially not participating at all and just hoping it all shakes out, and all those things. Yeah, that's an interesting question, interesting thought.
And I think that's the struggle that we live into today, is that people are so seeking God and God's presence in their lives that what happens if we just stop and pay attention to what's going on, and acknowledging God's presence? And it may just be a small, simple presence or a still small voice. What if we paid attention to that instead of looking for such a big thing? When we deal with God, we're always expecting these big things. And like, God appeared to Moses in a burning bush that wasn't burning. God worked in so many small, mysterious ways. And are we really paying attention to that today?
Sure. It makes me think of, how Jesus approached it, and, how he's approached through the temptations. All of the temptations are big, sensational acts for Jesus to go and do, so people will notice. And so people will follow him because he's this big sensational thing. And his response is no. I want people to come with me, to follow me, because of this, and because of these small little acts, these miracles, just having conversations with people, being with people, having meals with them, talking to them, meeting them where they are. And do we fall into the same thing just because of the culture we have today, that we're looking for the big, grandiose act, this miracle, this big sign, and yet we have these little signs in front of us, these little miracle. I don't want to call them little miracles, because a miracle is a miracle, right? But these little acts, these little things that said, that's God showing us, here I am.
It's kind of like, when we do the nativity scenes with the kiddos at Christmas time, more people are going to come and watch the little lambs and what they're going to do than anything else in the play. And that those parts matter just as much as little baby infant Jesus or Mary, or, everybody wants to be Mary, or maybe not. Maybe a lot of people, like in our deal, when we do, because we do like a sporadic, I just start telling the story, and people who want to be sheep come up and be sheep. It's amazing. I get more sheep than I do shepherds. I get more people that want to play a small significant role than want to play Mary. And I think that that's the thing with us in faith, is that we, what if we just wanted to do the role that God gave us and be a small part of creation? Because you remember at World Methodist Conference, Zach, when they had that was it astrophysicist or someone way smarter than me,
Two people
talking about the stars, and they showed they blew up where the universe and like how it works in the world, and it's like the reality hit me in that moment that I'm just like a little bitty insignificant human,
right,
in this vastness of life. And it's
right,
like, how could I not acknowledge God at work? And it may not be in the way that I want, but it's in the way that God has had in mind since the very beginning.
Right. And when we take our life or a worldview or a historical view and we look at that and we pull back through, like you say, through the atmosphere, through space, and we see that we're just a little bit to do with that, the things that are happening in our lives and where God's creating in our lives and around the world and through history aren't insignificant, because of the vastness of this universe that we live in and the vastness of the people that are in it and will be in it. And when we see God working in our own lives and creating and doing those things, it isn't insignificant. It brings it right back down to, oh my gosh, God does love me. And look at all of this that's around us. And he loves me, and he loves you, and he loves the person sitting beside you and the person halfway across the world. That's not insignificant at all. But it certainly, I'm like you, they pull back on those pictures. It's like, oh my gosh, how small, are we? But how great is God's love for us within that? It's one of those things that's hard to understand. It's one of those mysteries that we talk about that man, we come to understanding throughout our lives, and it's pretty cool.
Well, and that's what's amazing, because when you think about it, we're coming up on Reformation Day, and that's the day that the Protestant Church recognizes the kind of definitive moment from the split from Catholicism, and Protestantism became the thing, or became part of the Christian experience. You think about it, that was in 1517.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so from 34 to 1517, there's one experience, and so from 1517 to today, that's not a whole lot of time contrast between the two. Mm-hmm. And we're just a blip on the historical map on that.
Right.
Like the church struggles we're having right now are just a blip on this large vastness of the Christian experience that has happened. Some of it has been good. There has been a lot done well in the name of Jesus Christ. There are other things that let's just say are less desirable. And so I think,
but you have that throughout all religious history.
Well, right. But I think to come back to it, and the importance of Christ is God still creating? Yes, but he's also using us as actors in a play. And I think that the response is, how are we living out? Are we playing our part, or are we ad-libbing and messing things up? That's something to think about.
That is something to think about. And that's what we want all of you to think about and to be in conversation with us. Is God still creating? Are you playing your part? And maybe what is your role? And how have you seen your role change throughout your lifetime? And how do you see it changing into the future? We want to thank you for joining us, being in conversation with us, and along with that, wherever you're listening to us, whether you downloaded us off of iTunes or Google Play, or you're watching us on YouTube, we would love for you guys to go and leave a review. I think there's 5 stars on all of those. It'd be really cool if you gave us some of those stars. It'd be really awesome if you clicked on 5. But that helps us get our podcast out there. It helps help us seem a little more credible that you guys you do listen to us and you enjoy it. And so as people come across and see those reviews, see those stars, hopefully this conversation will continue to grow out. We'd also love to encourage you to go to our webpage. We have all the podcasts, all of the blogs and contributors there, as well as our gear. You can buy one of our lovely, lovely coffee mugs. Frakes and I have a couple of examples here.
Or onesies.
Yes, you can buy a onesie. And if you do not have children, there have to be people around you that are having children. Please buy them a onesie because they're pretty cool. This
is not an indictment on any one of us having children. We're sending this to a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours. We're sending it as our gift because I don't want any rumors started. No rumors started.
Contrary to the pictures on Instagram, neither one of us are having any more children at the moment. And but buy onesies for your friends, buy coffee mugs. You can find t-shirts and things for yourself as well. We also want to thank our hashtag pastor not our pastor today, Rudy Rasmus. Thank you for all the work you're doing in the church and in the kingdom and making disciples. We want to thank you for that. And we want to thank all of you for listening to us today at Bearded Theologians. I'm Zach Bechtold.
And I'm Matt Franks.
And keep on rolling.
You just listened to the Bearded Theologians podcast. If you'd like to learn more about the Bearded Theologians, you can go online at beardedtheologians.com.